The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, even turning a page difficult, if not impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Thursday, July the 9th, 2026. Your readers today,
Jim Duffy
and Ken Drost. And opening with the front page, Trump, ceasefire with Iran is over. They're liars, he says. Both sides trade attacks. This is a joint article written by staffers Francesca Chambers, Aaron Mansfield, Zach Anderson, Bart Jansen, Chris Kahn, and Rachel Barber. I was going to throw my own name in there and see if anybody noticed. President Donald Trump said he considered the ceasefire between the United States and Iran over and could resume his bombing campaign after the latest round of tit-for-tat strikes, casting uncertainty over efforts to end the conflict. To me, I think it's over. I don't want to deal with them, Trump said July 8th from Ankara, Turkey, where he was attending a NATO summit. They're scum. They're sick people. They're led by sick people. They're vicious, violent people. His remarks came as a U.S. Navy commander was presumed dead after an emergency helicopter landing in the Arabian Sea, raising the number of American service members killed in the Iran war to 14. Commander Gabriel Edwards, commanding officer of Helicopter Sea Combat Squadron 5, was reported missing after the July 1st incident. On July 5th, the Navy suspended its search. 3 of the helicopter's crew members were found and reported in stable condition, according to the Navy. They were aboard an MH-60S Seahawk helicopter assigned to the USS George H.W. Bush, one of 2 aircraft carriers operating in the Arabian Sea region amid the war. What led to the emergency landing remains unclear. The Navy said that it was investigating and that there is no indication the emergency was caused by hostile action. Trump told reporters at a morning meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte that U.S. negotiators wanted to continue to try to broker peace with Iran, but he declared, as far as I'm concerned, it's over. Just a waste of time dealing with them, he said. They're liars. The president made his comments several hours after Iran said it targeted U.S. military sites in Bahrain and Kuwait. The attacks came after the United States launched strikes against Iran in retaliation for attacks on commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz that American officials described as a ceasefire violation. We hit them hard last night, Trump said at a meeting earlier with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and added the United States would probably be pummeling Iran again overnight. Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth listed as targets the Iranian small boats that harass shipping, underground storage facilities for drones and missiles, coastal defense sites, and radar locations. Anything used to harass shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, he said. He said the attacks would go even deeper if needed. Anything they thought they had rebuilt or capability they were using was a target last night, Hegseth told reporters at the NATO conference. The conflict around the strait and escalating U.S. response underscored the tenuous status of peace negotiations. The 2 countries most recently reached a 60-day ceasefire agreement, June 19th, to end a war that began February 28th. The Memorandum of Understanding called for reopening the Strait of Hormuz and launched further negotiations on Iran's nuclear program and U.S. sanctions. But the United States struck Iran again June 26th, in response to what it said were Iranian attacks on ships in the strait. Fighting appeared to die down until July 7th, and on July 8th, it's 18 days after the ceasefire began, Trump said he considered the ceasefire over. Iranian state media wrote on social media that its most recent attacks on commercial ships were in response to U.S. military aggression. We will not allow U.S. interference in the Strait of Hormuz, state media wrote. Transit through the strait is only permitted via the routes designated by Iran. Now, Rutte, the NATO Secretary General, said the U.S. strikes were justified because Iran was violating the ceasefire. I think it is totally crucial that the U.S. forcefully react, Rutte said at the news conference. In a joint declaration, the leaders of NATO's 32 member nations said Iran must never have a nuclear weapon. The alliance continues to respond and adapt to the strategic competition, pervasive instability, hybrid threats, and recurrent shocks that define our broader security environment, the declaration said. Allies reiterate that Iran must never have a nuclear weapon and call on Iran to fully respect freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. Kaja Kallas, head of foreign affairs for the European Union, also condemned Iran's latest attacks on ships near the strait, saying its actions violate the ceasefire and threaten to disrupt the resumption of energy supplies. Freedom of navigation must be unimpeded, Kallas wrote in a social media post. She said top diplomats for European Union countries will meet with officials in the Persian Gulf next week to discuss working together and preserving freedom of navigation. Now, oil prices spiked July 8th after Trump said the ceasefire was over, renewing concerns that American consumers could face higher gas prices just as they had begun to expect relief. The jump also appears to be a response to the Treasury Department's decision to revoke a temporary U.S. waiver which allowed Iran to sell oil on the open market, a decision that will constrain the global oil supply. Brent crude oil, the global benchmark, jumped 6% to $74.50 a barrel early on July 8th. Although gas prices often lag oil prices, those numbers also ticked higher. The national average for a gallon of regular gasoline rose to $3.80, according to the AAA. It's up from $3.85 last week, but still down from the $4.16 that it was in June.
J.D. Vance for president in 28? Trump isn't sold, at least not yet. From Francesca Chambers and Zach Anderson, USA Today staffers. J.D. Vance was the first person Vicky Schwartz cast a ballot for in Ohio. She had just moved to the state from California, where she taught public school. He was trying his hand at politics by running for the U.S. Senate after working for a San Francisco-based investment firm. The 70-year-old suburban Columbus resident says she read Vance's best-selling memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, and she's 2 chapters into his new one. Vance has impressed her. She gushed about his appearance this month on The View. Still, she's conflicted about her vote. In 2028, if Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio both seek the Republican nomination to succeed President Trump, I kind of feel like they should flip a coin, and then whoever wins the coin flip, that one runs for president, or gets first choice, Schwartz said at President Trump's rally June 24th on the National Mall. Would an endorsement from the president help her make her decision? Absolutely, she says. Yet, as Republican voters look to Trump for guidance, the president remains non-committal, and Vance is coming under increasing pressure to cement his spot as the Republican candidate to beat by early next year. In conversations with nearly a dozen sources close to the White House, most of whom requested anonymity to discuss private interactions, allies of the president and vice president said Trump is not sold on Vance as his 2028 pick. The president has been asking those around him what they think of Vance and Rubio, a more seasoned politician who has become one of Trump's most trusted advisors on international affairs. It's the ultimate game of The Apprentice, and Trump feels he still has plenty of time to decide, one person close to the White House said. Vance has not said publicly whether he intends to run for higher office, but he has been seizing the spotlight as he lays the foundation for a potential bid through the promotion of his new book, Communion, and interviews tied to the Iran peace negotiations. He insists he's focused on helping Republicans win the November midterm elections and excelling at the vice presidency. I don't think that you should be thinking so much about a job you could have years down the road when you're still a year and a half into the job the American people elected you to do, Vance told USA Today in an interview in June. Vance's early performance as vice president appears to be helping his prospects. Nassim Nabili, 43, a business owner from Landover, Maryland, said he is not as hard-hitting as Trump, but he's a little more articulate. Vance is well-versed on policy and exudes confidence, she said. Like many Republicans who spoke to USA Today at the Trump rally, Nabili said she was familiar with hillbilly elegy and had seen him defending the administration's policies on television. But they don't know much more about the Ohio native who converted to Trumpism and Catholicism not long before he ran for office. Logan Huttel, a recent high school graduate from Stanton, Virginia, identified Vance as a former Marine. The 18-year-old said he's inclined to support Vance and would like to learn more. Enter Communion, which continues the tradition of possible presidential candidates writing books that help define themselves to voters. In one passage, Vance says he backs state-level bans on businesses being open on holidays like Thanksgiving so employees can be with their families. That policy proposal puts some rare daylight between Vance and Trump, who has pushed for fewer non-working federal holidays and could help Vance appeal to independent voters. In his interview with USA Today, Vance said he supports the right of workers to privately unionize and bargain for higher wages, another position Trump has not embraced. He described himself as both an economic populist and a religious conservative, and said it's consistent with his Christian Catholic faith that there be a distribution of resources that's consistent with the common good. I don't think economic populism is somehow inconsistent with religious conservatism. I would say the tradition of the Christian church is very supportive of a particular kind of economic populism, he said. But as the vice president tries to stake out his lane with voters, he also needs to continue proving himself to Trump. JD or Marco? It's a question Trump has been posing privately to people around him for at least a year. At meetings, in the Oval Office, at Mar-a-Lago, the president polled a crowd of law enforcement officers publicly at a Rose Garden dinner recently. Who likes J.D. Vance? Trump quipped. Who likes Marco Rubio? All right, sounds like a good ticket. He quickly added, that does not mean you have my endorsement under any circumstance. Although the 2028 lineup is far from settled, speculation on the Republican side largely centers on two highest-ranking cabinet officials. The president is heavily focused on who has the best chance of winning, two people close to the White House said. And he's looking at Rubio, a former Florida senator and 2016 presidential contender, and wondering whether he'd have a better shot than Vance, they said. Vance has long been viewed as more closely aligned with the MAGA base, as Rubio faces suspicions about his work on immigration reform and his hawkish record. But the Trump competitor turned ally has clearly made up ground. An Emerson College survey of Republican voters released in May showed Vance with 36% support, and Rubio with 35%, a statistical tie given the 4.7% point margin of error. Trump has a long history of polling those around him about decisions he may or may not make in the future, another person close to the White House said, adding the president is always looking to gauge public sentiment. He often figures that out via pointed questions. It doesn't mean the president is down on Vance. Another person said, adding that he may simply be trying to keep the vice president on his toes and motivated to deliver. Vance is still the default nominee, and the fact that Trump has entrusted him with negotiations for a peace agreement with Iran that could make or break his presidency is a sign of Vance's clout, the person said.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:15.
Continuing, Vance's role as the Republican National Committee's chief fundraiser has helped him get in front of another key constituency, donors, and made him the face of midterm campaigning. But Rubio has run for president once before, has a longer track record with donors, and has more experience politically and on foreign policy, an area in which Vance has actively tried to improve his bona fides. Vance appears to be auditioning for Trump's endorsement. In negotiating an Iran deal, one person close to the White House said, friends of the vice president have denied that. Trump has been taking note and critiquing his performance. I thought J.D. Vance this morning was fantastic, Trump said June the 22nd. After Vance traveled overseas to meet with Iranian leaders, I watched his news conference from Switzerland. He's a very smart guy. He did a great job. But a few days earlier, on June 17th, the president quipped that if the deal went sideways, it would be Vance's fault. A bad deal would be a death knell for Vance, one person close to the White House said. If the perception is that it's not a win, it will be a massive political vulnerability for him, the person said. Trump loves to keep people guessing and motivated to impress him, and he has repeatedly waited until the last minute to endorse. If Trump does that with Vance, it could give other potential candidates an opening. Rubio has said he wants to remain in his role until the end of the president's term and has indicated publicly that he would not run if Vance does. But one insider said Rubio's actions, like taking the White House podium late in May, tell a different story. Trump has suggested multiple times that they run together on one ticket. He hasn't said which one of them should be at the top. Three sources close to the White House said Senator Ted Cruz, who declined to comment, also is considering a run, and other big names could emerge. Trump proved again and again during the early midterm election jockeying that his endorsement drives outcomes in Republican primaries. The MAGA base has rallied behind nearly every congressional candidate he backed. Retired real estate agent Paul Ayers, 73, a Trump supporter who came to Washington from Phoenix to attend the president's rally, said Vance and Rubio are both really excellent, but he suspects the vice president would have the organizing edge. He notes that Trump's pick for Iowa governor, Randy Feenstra, lost the Republican primary to a Turning Point USA-backed candidate. I think I'm going to go with Vance no matter what, he said, despite Trump's preference. Vance has said he'll huddle with his wife, Usha, after the midterms without specifying when exactly he'll make an announcement. I just haven't really thought that much about it, Vance told USA Today, when asked whether he thought he had to decide by the end of the year. Vance's team hasn't done any polling or organizing in possible early states, and it doesn't believe he needs to make a decision in 2026. Republican Party operatives with experience on presidential campaigns have mixed views on how long Vance can wait. Early jockeying could begin shortly after the midterms, but candidates with strong name identification may have a longer runway. By virtue of his official position, Vance is a major player without having to announce, said Mike Duhame, a Republican consultant and former political director for the RNC. He can wait longer than anyone else. Republican strategist Matt Gorman said the incumbency advantage helps Vance. He can travel on Air Force Two, and he's exempt from a law that restricts U.S. officials' ability to engage in politics. And though Trump choosing Vance as his running mate was a de facto endorsement of his ability to step into the top job, Gorman said, I don't expect, candidly, Trump to, the day after the midterms, appoint Vance. Vance will go out, and he'll earn it.
World Cup fever fuels soccer import surge. America's excitement over hosting the globe's biggest soccer tournament already showing up in trade data. Diane Zhang of USA Today writes, America has caught World Cup fever, and it is showing up in an unlikely place. Trade data. Ahead of the 2026 FIFA World Cup, hosted by the United States alongside Canada and Mexico, it was not only fans gearing up to see their teams in action, businesses started stocking up on soccer-related products a year ahead of the kickoff. Particularly, soccer balls are having a moment in America, and the numbers don't lie. U.S. imports of soccer balls hit nearly $40 million in the first 4 months of this year, the highest 4-month haul since 2002, the earliest year with available monthly data. That's according to USA Today analysis of census trade data. The import surge testifies to the power of the World Cup to popularize soccer in America, said Gary Huffbauer, an economist with the Peterson Institute for International Economics. That's a think tank based in Washington, D.C. This phenomenon is part of a larger trend in which soccer is joining football and basketball as a major sport. Now, import data also indicates that businesses began preparing as early as 2025. Based on USA Today's analysis, U.S. soccer ball imports from August 2025 through April of this year also reached their highest level compared with the same period in prior years. The all-time high surge in imports came as global preparations accelerated for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, which runs from June 11th to July 19th and features 48 national teams competing across the 3 North American host countries. The expanded tournament, the largest in World Cup history, is bringing matches to 11 U.S. host cities: New York City, Los Angeles, Miami, Dallas, Atlanta, Boston, the San Francisco Bay Area, Seattle, Philadelphia, Houston, and Kansas City. The buzz is on. The U.S. men's national soccer team advanced to the round of 16 before its exit. Pulisic and Balogun have started to become household names. Immigrant communities from soccer-playing nations are gathering to watch parties to support their teams. Fans from Scotland drank Boston dry of beer, and Norwegian fans made their Viking Row celebration an internet sensation. The joy and celebration, alongside the heartbreak for fans of losing countries, is getting people to follow along in stadiums and at home. Now, besides soccer balls, U.S. businesses stocked up on soccer-related products, jerseys, shoes, months, and in some cases more than a year ahead of the tournament. Nicholas Duenas, owner of Boston Soccer Shop in Cambridge, Massachusetts, said he prepared his merchandise 6 to 8 months in advance. Duenas has been seeing a record high number of customers in his shop, which he's run for 15 years. Soccer is getting so crazy, Duenas said. We have been very busy. He expected sales to climb sharply in the weeks leading up to the tournament and said his customers are coming from all walks of life, including fans from foreign countries. A couple of 100 miles away, Gus Avalos, manager of soccer and rugby imports, said he began preparing for the World Cup sales almost a year ago, and he placed orders from Adidas, Nike, and Puma early enough that some merchandise arrived before Christmas last year. Now, still, customer demand is more than expected, Avalos said. He said the chain, which operates 6 retail stores in Connecticut and New York, saw nearly doubled sales in June compared with June of last year. It's a nice boost for business every 4 years, Avalos said. World Cup being in the United States for the first time since 1994, there's definitely more excitement because people can drive to the games. Avalos and Duenas boosted sales a glimpse into how major sporting events can fuel customer spending, as fan enthusiasm quickly turns into merchandise purchases. From a planning perspective, major sporting events create short, concentrated demand windows, said Rohit Tripathi, Vice President of Industry Strategy and Manufacturing at Relex, a technology company for retail and supply chain planning. Tripathi said it's important for business owners to place products in the right place, at the right price point, and available at the right time to match those brief spikes in demand. That surge in imports was led largely by a handful of major manufacturing hubs. Now, Pakistan was the dominant supplier of soccer balls this year, followed by China and Indonesia. Soccer ball production has deep roots in Sialkot, a manufacturing center in Pakistan known worldwide for hand-stitched soccer balls, including the official World Cup balls. When Hufbauer worked as an advisor in Pakistan decades ago, he said he observed that making soccer balls and other sporting goods is a family tradition for Pakistanis, and that craftsmanship was often passed down through families, with young workers learning skills across generations. While China remained the second largest supplier of soccer balls to the U.S. this year, U.S. imports from China during the January to April period this year fell to their lowest level in 2 decades. The drop in imports from China is entirely explained by economic sanctions, Hufbauer said, pointing to steep U.S. tariffs and trade restrictions on Chinese goods. China's loss is Pakistan's gain.
Elon Musk's DOGE officially shuts down. From Aaron Mansfield of USA Today. The government cost-cutting initiative started by billionaire Elon Musk is formally shutting down a year and a half after it began, and about a year after the founder left Donald Trump's administration. The Department of Government Efficiency wrote July 4th on its X account that its formal mission ended, but the mission to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse will continue. Good stewardship of taxpayer dollars and accountable government are not temporary initiatives. The initiative, nicknamed DOGE, was a quasi-agency that Musk ran as an advisor to the president. His staff worked with informal agencies and used artificial intelligence to find ways to cut costs. They were central to the mass layoffs that took place in 2025. Doge shares a name with Musk's favorite cryptocurrency. A USA Today review published in February found that Doge ended contracts in 64 different agencies, but 30% of those contracts already had been paid by the time they were terminated, meaning that provided virtually no savings. Jillian Blanchard, a vice president at the nonprofit Lawyers for Good Government, said she believed many of the contract terminations were improper. Someone signed on the dotted line and committed to the obligation, and the agency or department just unlawfully terminated it, she told USA Today. Blanchard argued that the terminations were unlawful because the government had already entered into binding agreements and obligated the funding. In the federal government, there are 72 inspectors general who are responsible for investigating fraud, waste, and abuse. The Trump administration fired many of these, and a court allowed their firings to stand, but other posts remain filled.
ABC, the FCC's chilling speech before election. The network agency spar over equal time rule. Brianna J. Frank of USA Today writes, ABC accused the Federal Communications Commission of chilling speech ahead of the 2026 general election in a July 6th legal filing submitted as part of an ongoing proceeding related to the Commission's equal time rules. Now, the FCC initiated an enforcement action against the Disney-owned ABC in February after State Representative James Tallarico, Democrat from Texas, appeared on The View while running in the state's Democratic U.S. Senate primary. FCC Chairman Brendan Carr has characterized the matter as a procedural issue, saying that ABC had not submitted the proper paperwork declaring an appearance by a political candidate that would open the window for an opposing candidate to request comparable time and placement. Commissioner Ana Gomez, whom former President Joe Biden appointed in 2023, however, has accused the FCC of engaging in partisan politics to support President Donald Trump's objectives. The FCC began accepting public input as to whether The View should be exempt from the requirement to offer equal broadcast opportunities to political candidates in May. More than 50,000 comments had been filed by late June when ABC launched an on-air campaign to encourage public participation in the matter. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:30. Continuing, ABC has maintained that the exemption the FCC granted The View in 2002 should remain in place, saying in its July 6 filing that the program has not materially changed since then. The filing said the overwhelming majority of public support comments supported ABC, but also responded to counterpoints raised by commentators who opposed an exemption for the show. To those who criticized The View for being what they described as opinion-driven, for example, the network said denying an exemption based on perspective would be an unconstitutional prototypical content or viewpoint-based restriction. As for concerns about the ratio of right-leaning to left-leaning guests on the show, ABC said the notion of establishing a government-approved ideological quota in the name of balance would be not a regulatory standard, but a surveillance regime. The First Amendment does not permit the government to sit in an editor's chair, the filing said. Gomez concurred July 7th on X. You don't have to like their coverage to see the danger here, she wrote. Handing government the power to decide what's newsworthy and which guests to feature is a threat to press freedom, no matter which party is in charge. The filing also accused the FCC of targeting daytime and late-night television programs perceived as unfriendly to the current administration, while leaving untouched the vast landscape of talk radio, where candidates routinely appear without their opponents. In a separate matter, the FCC in April ordered the Disney-owned ABC to file license renewals for its 8 television stations by late May. That's years ahead of schedule. The order said the commission was investigating possible violations of the Communications Act of 1934 and the FCC's rules. Now, Disney said its record demonstrates our continued qualifications as licensees under the Communications Act and the First Amendment, and are prepared to show that through the appropriate legal channels. An FCC spokesperson said ABC should focus on complying with its public interest obligations rather than misleading the public about them in a July 7th email to USA Today. The network in its filing said there is nothing misleading about alerting the public that the proceeding could impinge on a broadcaster's editorial discretion over who appears on its programming.
Speculation surrounds McConnell's health. Rumors fill into gaps. I'm going to repeat that. Rumors fill info gaps on Senator's condition. From Alyssa Goldberg of USA Today. Senator Mitch McConnell was hospitalized weeks ago, but new details about his health have been few and far between. Audio from an emergency medical services dispatch suggests that McConnell, who is 84, was reported unconscious at his Washington residence in June, prompting an advanced life support response. However, his office says the former Senate Majority Leader's health is improving. The senator continues to improve and is working closely with his staff on Kentucky in Senate matters while the Senate is out of session, McConnell's office said in a statement to USA Today on July the 7th. Congressional aides also told USA Today that the senator has been making lengthy phone calls to other GOP lawmakers from the hospital, including Wyoming Senator John Barrasso, the Senate Majority Whip. He was fully engaged throughout their 20-minute call and eager to get back to the Senate, according to Barrasso spokeswoman Kate Noyes. McConnell, who stepped down in 2024 as a Republican leader, is one of the oldest members of the Senate and has a long history of health issues. He was previously hospitalized in February after experiencing flu-like symptoms, a spokesperson said at the time. He also experienced several health scares in 2023, including 2 incidents where he abruptly froze while speaking. He was also hospitalized in 2023 for a fractured rib and concussion after suffering a fall at a hotel in Washington. With his latest hospitalization, combined with the little information Americans can find on it, speculation on his health has run rampant. It's normal to wonder about a public figure's health, especially a politician who can heavily influence Americans' daily lives and legal rights. But experts say health speculation can be harmful too. When a highly powerful elected official is observed publicly experiencing a medical issue, it is reasonable to expect public discussion as well as a public response from the leader. Laura Pettiford, marriage and family therapist and psychiatric nurse practitioner, previously told USA Today. McConnell isn't the first politician or prominent figure to have their health inspected by the public eye. Representative Thomas Keene Jr.'s 4-month absence from Congress raised many eyebrows, though he ultimately shared it was due to depression. And in 2024, Princess Kate shied away from public duties following planned abdominal surgery, and a rumor that she had died ran rampant on social media. Months later, she disclosed her cancer diagnosis. Public figures, including political leaders, deserve a certain level of privacy regarding their personal health issues. Brad Fulton, professor of management, data science, and philanthropy at the Indiana University of Bloomington, previously told USA Today, everyone has boundaries, though it's easy to ignore others' boundaries in current times. In the age of social media, the general public has become trained to share not only their most private moments, but also to expect others to do the same. Psychologist Renee Carr previously told USA Today. Still, politicians require more scrutiny than most, particularly when their health directly impacts their ability to perform their duties. McConnell is not seeking re-election at the end of his term this year after more than 4 decades in office, but it is still up in the air if he will be able to resume his role as a senator when the chamber reconvenes for votes on July the 13th. Plenty of medical experts will weigh in on public figures in the news. That said, it's not ethical for health practitioners to diagnose people from afar, regardless of whether they're a celebrity or a politician. Amy Morin, a psychotherapist, author of 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do, and the host of a podcast previously told USA Today. But it may be important to assure that someone in a position of power is getting treated by a professional to ensure that they still have the ability to perform the duties assigned to their position. Whatever the case, when considering personal health matters, Fulton noted it is important to balance the public's right to information with the individual's right to privacy.
ICE fatally shoots an immigrant. A Mexican man dies in Houston operation. Michael Loria of USA Today writes, federal immigration enforcement agents shot and killed a Mexican immigrant in Houston on July 7, according to U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials. Lorenzo Salgado Arroyo was shot by ICE agents after they attempted to pull him over in a targeted enforcement operation in the city's East End neighborhood. That was shortly before 7 in the morning, according to an agency spokesperson. ICE officials said Salgado attempted to evade arrest and weaponized his vehicle in an attempt to run over an agent. The officer fired in self-defense, the spokesperson said. Salgado was taken to a hospital where he died. USA Today has reached out to the Department of Homeland Security for more information on what prompted ICE agents to pursue him. LULAC, a prominent Latino civil rights group, said it had been in contact with Salgado Arroyo's son, Ronaldo. According to the family, Salgado Arroyo was killed as he was starting his workday. 2 workers who were with him were detained by immigration agents, LULAC said, citing family members. LULAC, by the way, stands for the League of United Latin American Citizens. The group said it is offering a $5,000 reward for information that leads either to the indictment or exoneration of the agent behind the shooting. Salgado Arroyo's family said the man was in the process of becoming a citizen. USA Today has reached out to DHS for comments. Leaders at LULAC slammed ICE's explanation of the shooting. We've heard this excuse one too many times, said Domingo Garcia, a former LULAC president, referring to accusations that Salgado Arroyo attempted to weaponize his vehicle and ram agents. Immigration authorities used similar terms to describe the shootings of Silverio Villegas Gonzalez, a Mexican man killed outside Chicago in September, and Rene Good, a U.S. citizen killed in Minneapolis in January. He was shot. He was unarmed, and yet the same excuse that we have heard time and time again. He weaponized his van, Garcia said. Yet when we look at the pictures, there's no damage. LULAC shared photos from the scene of Salgado Arroyo's vehicle. The photos of the front and the driver's side of a white van show no dents or scratches. USA Today has not independently verified those images. Garcia called for a full investigation into the shooting. Mary Benton, a spokesperson for Houston Mayor John Whitmire, said Houston police were not involved and referred questions to Homeland Security. ICE said Homeland Security's Inspector General will be investigating the shooting, and FBI officials in Houston will be investigating a potential assault on a federal law enforcement officer.
Turning to the money section of USA Today, knowledge gap hurting buyers trying to buy home. From Medora Lee, staffer of USA Today. Millions of Americans may feel as if rising home prices prevent them from affording a home. But what if they just don't know how to buy a home? According to credit scoring company FICO, 59% of Americans said in a survey shared with USA Today that they don't fully understand the steps involved in buying a home. And the figure rises to 64% among first-time home buyers. Even among people who are planning to buy a home, have said they don't completely understand the process. About 1 in 5 Americans, including 1 in 4 prospective home buyers, also underestimate how significantly credit score affects mortgage rates, believing it has minor or no impact, or they say they're not sure. Roadblocks to home buyers don't all rest with the economy. Many home buyers have more control than they may think. Consumers who are looking to buy homes in the next year are facing real headwinds, primarily citing current interest rates and home prices. But they are not the only challenge. Janelle Ditto, Vice President of FICO's Consumer Empowerment Programs and Partnerships, said in an email, a surprising number of potential buyers face knowledge gaps around the home buying process. What do home buyers need to know? One of the first things buyers should know is that what their credit score is. Then they should devise a plan to improve it, financial experts said. About 85% of Americans view credit score management as a wealth-building strategy, not just a borrowing tool. About a quarter of them don't know their FICO score, FICO's survey showed. Lenders use credit scores as one measure to decide whether to approve a loan and on what terms, including the interest rate. A high credit score tells lenders you're at a lower risk of defaulting on a mortgage. Most conventional mortgages require home buyers have a minimum credit score of 620 for approval, but certain first-time home buyers may qualify for special government-sponsored loans with more lenient approval requirements, according to Equifax.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:45.
Continuing, despite this, 17% of prospective home buyers have not taken any steps to improve their credit score ahead of a purchase, the survey showed. More than a quarter also have not encouraged their co-applicants to do the same. Renters, who make up a significant share of first-time buyers, have ample opportunity to build up their credit score, but are often unaware, according to FICO. Half of renters don't know that paying rent on time can help build a person's credit score, the survey showed. More than a quarter said understanding how rent payments can influence credit history would make them feel more prepared to purchase a home. It's best to begin monitoring your score at least 6 months before starting the process, giving you time to make meaningful financial improvements, according to Dido. Actively tracking your financial habits and identifying where there's room to improve is an effective way to build your credit and secure better terms with a lender. Of the nearly 3 in 5 Americans who said they don't fully understand the steps involved in buying a home, even more among first-time home buyers, rate shopping is a perfect example of an activity that many might be confused about but could ultimately lead to big savings, according to Dido. Many home buyers don't realize multiple mortgage-related credit inquiries within a short window, typically 45 days, are treated as a single inquiry when calculating your credit score, according to experts. So, as with every major purchase, people should shop for the best terms. Shopping around has little to no negative impact, and even a small difference in interest rates can translate into tens of thousands of dollars over the life of a loan, making it well worth the effort, according to Dido.
Y'all Street grows with Texas Stock Exchange. Mateo Rosiles of USA Today Network writes, "Move over New York and NASDAQ. There's a new stock exchange in Texas." The Texas Stock Exchange in Dallas went live July the 6th, but only for members, as it began test trading of designated securities with live trading set to start on Friday, July the 10th. When it goes live to the public, the stock exchange will only trade a few securities, with more added over the next few weeks. No company is listed on the exchange as yet. So here's what to know about TXSE, the emerging Y'all Street financial corridor, and which securities are going to trade first. So what exactly is the Texas Stock Exchange? The Texas Stock Exchange is the only national securities exchange built, headquartered, and incorporated in Texas, based out of Dallas. According to its website, TXSE is backed by Bank of America, BlackRock, Charles Schwab, Citadel, Fortress, Goldman Sachs, and JP Morgan, among others. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission formally approved the stock exchange late September. And what is Y'all Street? Y'all Street refers to the financial corridor in Dallas that includes downtown, Victory Park, and Uptown, according to Texas Capital Bank. It's being built to help solidify Dallas's position as a financial powerhouse to rival Wall Street. The Guardian reported in April that there are 386,000 financial sector workers in Texas, with Charles Schwab relocating its headquarters to the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs having corporate hubs in the area. So when will the public be allowed to trade on the Texas Stock Exchange? Now that's set to go live on Friday, July the 10th, with only a few securities initially available, more to be added over the next month. The TXSE trading schedule will be as follows in Central Time. Pre-market, 7 to 8:30 in the morning. Regular trading, 8:30 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon. Post-market, 3 to 4 p.m. So who's going to trade on the Texas Stock Exchange? Well, the initial securities are PBA, which is Pembina Pipeline Corporation, PDFS, PDF Solutions Incorporated, SPHD, that is Invesco S&P 500 High Dividend Low Volatility ETF, SRRK, which is Scholar Rock Holding Corporation, VCYT, which is Verisight Incorporated.
Forever stamp prices are going up 4 cents on July the 12th. From Mike Snyder of USA Today. The U.S. Postal Service is once again raising the price of forever stamps and other postal rates. If you are running low on forever stamps, now is a good time to restock because the stamps will increase in price by 4 cents from 78 cents to 82 cents when the price increase goes into effect on Sunday, July the 12th. Overall, the Postal Service is raising mailing services product prices about 4.8% according to the USPS. The Postal Service raised the price of the forever stamp from 73 cents to 78 cents in July of last year. When forever stamps were introduced in 2007, they cost 41 cents each. That's a 100% increase in 19 years. Initially issued at the going price of a first-class stamp, the forever stamps were meant to help consumers with future price changes. No matter when they were purchased, the stamp would be good for sending mail. So any stamps you have now that you bought for 78 cents or less can still be used even after this latest price increase. Here's what to know before you go pick up your stamps. When is the price of stamps going up? The Postal Service will increase prices on July the 12th of this year. How much will forever stamps cost? The price of forever stamps will rise from 78 to 82 cents. Other price increases include domestic postcards, 61 to 65 cents. Letters, metered 1 ounce, 74 cents to 78. Letters, 1 ounce, 78 cents to 82 cents. International postcards, $1.70 to $1.75. International letter, 1 ounce, $1.70 to $1.75. The additional ounce price for single-piece letters will remain at 29 cents according to the USPS. Now, why is the Postal Service raising prices? The Postal Service filed its intent to raise prices on April the 9th of this year. The Postal Regulatory Commission on May 27th approved the Postal Service's price changes, which will be implemented on Sunday, July the 12th. The price increases were needed to help the Postal Service address rising costs and other challenges, the agency said in its announcement. In the midst of the severe financial crisis facing the Postal Service and continued rising operational costs, the Postal Service is using all available tools, including available regulatory pricing authority, to ensure we can continue to fulfill our universal service obligation and serve the American public, the Postal Service said at the time. In a financial analysis report released May 21st, the Postal Regulatory Commission noted the Postal Service had recorded a net loss of $2.7 billion for the fiscal year ending September 30th of last year. The agency has operated at a loss over the past decade, according to the Commission. Losses sustained over the past 10 years have weakened the Postal Service's financial position, resulting in a significant gap between assets and liabilities, the PRC said in the report.
Xbox is hit hard as Microsoft slashes jobs. Fernando Cervantes Jr. of USA Today writes, Microsoft is cutting 4,800 jobs and reshaping its Xbox business in one of its largest workforce reductions this year, a move that's going to eliminate thousands of gaming division roles and separate 4 studios from the company. The tech giant announced the cuts on July the 6th, saying about 2% of its workforce would be affected. Now, Xbox is expected to account for roughly 3,200 of the layoffs, with additional job losses planned through fiscal year 2027 as the company restructures its gaming operations under CEO Asha Sharma. The way technology is built, deployed, and used is transforming faster than at any point in my time here, Microsoft's Chief People Officer Amy Coleman wrote in a message to employees announcing the layoffs. In a separate message to Xbox employees, CEO Asha Sharma said the gaming division's restructuring is ultimately going to eliminate about 3,200 jobs, including 1,600 employees laid off on July the 6th. Now, I recognize that a year-long restructuring creates additional challenges, Sharma wrote. Unfortunately, it is not possible to make all the necessary changes in a single day. Sharma, a former Meta and Instacart executive, took over as Xbox CEO in February, following the retirement of longtime gaming chief Phil Spencer. Beyond the workforce reductions, Microsoft is also parting ways with 4 game studios. According to Sharma, Compulsion Games and Double Fine Productions will become independent companies. Ninja Theory and Undead Labs, meanwhile, have entered agreements to move under new ownership. The moves mark one of the most significant shakeups for Xbox in recent years. It's going to affect both staffing and Microsoft's portfolio of game developers. The latest cuts come only months after Microsoft offered voluntary buyouts to roughly 7% of its U.S. workforce as of April. Coleman said more than 1/3 of eligible employees accepted those offers and indicated the company could consider similar programs again. Decisions like these are never easy. You have my commitment that we are constantly looking for ways to reduce the need for job eliminations, Coleman wrote. You're listening to a reading of articles from USA Today for Thursday, July the 9th, 2026, on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We will return for more readings after the short break. Your readers today,
Jim Duffy
and Ken Drost.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of USA Today. Your readers are
Ken Drost
and Jim Duffy. And turning to our sports page, in an article regarding a World Cup power rankings, quarters up and France rates a 1 from Seth Fertinelli of USA Today. We are nearing the conclusion of a thrilling World Cup with just 8 teams left in the tournament. The round of 16 saw the tournament bid farewell to all 3 host countries as the United States, Mexico, and Canada all said goodbye. Other pre-tournament favorites exiting as well, such as Brazil and Portugal. But many of the World Cup's top teams are still in the mix, including defending champion Argentina, France, Spain, and England. But how do they stack up? And who's going to win the whole World Cup? Here are our rankings ahead of the quarterfinals, which kick off on July 9th with France versus Morocco. Number 8, Switzerland. The Swiss have to take some credit for turning things around after a frustrating draw with Qatar to open the tournament. The win over Colombia in round of 16 was not a fun watch for the neutrals, but Murat Yakin's side did what it needed to do to get a scoreless game through 120 minutes and win in penalties. Turning the pages here. But without injured Johan Mazambi, it could be a tough sledding against Argentina in the quarters. Number 7, Belgium. It had been a slow start to the tournament, but Belgium erupted against the USA, putting 4 past the home side, which had previously been excellent in the tournament. The Red Devils may have found the winning formula with Romelu Lukaku coming off the bench as the closer. Number 6, Morocco. Morocco showed it is once again a threat to go deep in this tournament by knocking off the Netherlands in the round of 32, then fighting off an early Canada onslaught to secure a comfortable 3-0 win in the round of 16. Number 5, Norway. Will Norway ever lose with Erling Haaland on the field? That is starting to feel like a pertinent question after the dominant forward scored twice against Brazil to make it 7 goals in 4 games so far. Number 4, Argentina. Argentina has shown incredible grit and a never-say-die attitude in the knockout phase, but it is worth wondering why it's been so tough to dispatch Cape Verde and Egypt. At some point, getting pushed to the limit in every game could take its toll on a side that relies on several older players. Number 3, England. England had to work hard to survive the Azteca, especially after going down a man early in the second half, but the 3 Lions prevailed, scoring 3 goals against a team that had conceded 0 in previous games in the tournament. Number 2, Spain. After a slow start to the tournament, Spain is all of a sudden looking like the World Cup favorite they were back before the first ball was kicked. Spain breezed past Austria in the round of 32 and did what it needed to against Portugal as Mikel Merino scored a dramatic late winner. And number 1, France. France was pushed to the limit by a Paraguay side that some would say went past the limits of decency. Still, sometimes you have to win ugly, and this France side managed to do just that. Morocco is next.
Caminero puts face on anonymous AL leaders. Christy Ackert of USA Today writes, Dateline, St. Petersburg, Florida. The bat flip that won a Dominican championship in January 2025 went viral. Future Hall of Famer Albert Pujols had called him the future of the sport. He hit 45 home runs in his age 21 season and came up 1 shy of a franchise record. Now, all that did not go to Junior Caminero's head. Instead, it taught him to keep things smaller. I feel more humble, the Tampa Bay Rays slugger said before their game July 7th against the New York Yankees at Tropicana Field. The more I play, the more I learn, the more I feel humble. Now that must be getting hard as Caminero is emerging as the face of an organization that has hunted for a face for decades. He has earned his second All-Star nod and is heading into the Home Run Derby on July 13th for the 2nd consecutive year. And he finished second last year. The native of the Dominican Republic hit 78 home runs before he turned 23 July 5th. And last year, 45 homers were the second most any hitter has had in an age 21 season. Now that's behind only Eddie Matthews, 47 of them in 1953. He's one of 5 players in history to finish a 45 homer season before turning 23, joining Matthews, Johnny Bench, Joe DiMaggio, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. 3 are in the Hall of Fame. The other is still playing. Because the Rays do not play on national television very often, fans may not recognize his face, but pitchers fear his bat. They stopped giving him anything to hit, so he stopped chasing. Now that should terrify the American League East because he's still learning. This year, I stay more passive at the plate, Caminero said. I stay back, let them come to me. Last year, I didn't do that much. His walk rate has roughly doubled, 12.9%. He's hitting the ball harder than he did a year ago, with an average exit velocity of 93.4 miles per hour and swinging through less. Thomas Francisco, the Rays field coordinator, who will throw to Caminero in the home run derby at Citizens Park in Philly, marvels at Caminero's natural ability. The hands are so quick that it just produces that power, Francisco said. He's so strong, even for his age. Caminero just turned 23 and is second in the AL with 27 home runs, the only Ray other teams game plan around, the only one a pitcher walks rather than challenges. Caminero beats you with a bomb. He may not be the first Ray to hit for power, but he is the first one young enough and dangerous enough to do it every year. He's also doing it at a time when the Rays need a face. A hurricane tore the roof off Tropicana Field in 2024 and sent the Rays to a minor league park for a year. They came home this spring with new owners. The lease runs out at Tropicana in 2028, and their next home is still a dream sketched on paper. They were no higher than 28th in attendance from 2011 to 2022. This year, they still have the best record in the American League. This team, right now, is complete, Caminero said. We play really, really hard. We are all in here to win a World Series. Now that is what Caminero wants you to remember about the Rays, not his home run total. He was signed out of the Dominican Republic at the age of 16 for $87,500. He is a large reason why they are here. He was a projectable kid, listed at 155 pounds, and said he only filled out during the pandemic. The Rays acquired him in November 2021 as an unranked prospect, a throw-in for Tobias Myers, a pitcher who never threw an inning for Cleveland. Typical Rays trade. Tampa Bay makes stars. It's not new. The Rays just do not keep them. Carl Crawford, David Price, Evan Longoria, Randy Arozarena, all of them came into this building, built a name, broke out as a star, and then finished the story somewhere else. Caminero is one of the Rays made. Caminero is one who the Rays made, who they may not be able to afford to lose, even while he keeps making himself more expensive with each home run.
Mm-hmm. Fresh start, new outlook. 6 elite quarterbacks under pressure to perform. From Matt Hayes, a college football columnist for the USA Today Network. There's no way to hide it or disguise it as something it's not. Just soak in the unimaginable. Bryce Underwood didn't have a position-specific coach in 2025. as the starting quarterback at Michigan. As a freshman, as the highest paid player on the team. He was thrown into a pretty rough situation, Michigan coach Kyle Whittingham told me this spring. There was very little development that took place with Bryce. It was bizarre, and so yeah, we got that fixed. Underwood, the number one quarterback recruit in the 2025 high school recruiting class, is one of 6 elite-level quarterbacks at Power Conference programs, restarting with new coaches and/or offensive coordinators. 3 play for legitimate college football playoff contenders, and 3 are in position to make a unique run to the CFP if everything falls into place. All 6 are in make-or-break moments of their careers. A look at the 6 quarterback coach combinations ranked in order of potential for team success. Number 1, Indiana. Quarterback Josh Hoover and head coach Curt Cignetti and offensive coordinator Mike Shanahan. Indiana has quickly become the place for transfer quarterbacks. Cignetti is hands-on with his quarterbacks and the offense, but Shanahan also deserves credit for the development of Curtis Rourke and Fernando Mendoza over the last 2 seasons. Both were transfers in a new system and both produced record seasons. The key for both, ball security and limiting turnovers, leading to a combined 70 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. However, 3 seasons as the TCU starter and 42 turnovers and 31 career starts, he was 19-13 as a starter and 1-3 versus ranked teams. Until a transfer quarterback struggles, Cignetti and Shanahan have position capital. Expect Hoover to have a big season. Number 2, LSU, quarterback Sam Leavitt and offensive coordinator Charlie Weis Jr. Leavitt missed half of last season with a foot injury, but led Arizona State to the college football playoff in 2024. He's accurate and athletic and has a flair for the big moment, which fits perfectly with all things Lane Kiffin. Leavitt is on his 3rd team. He began his career at Michigan State and has 39 career touchdown passes and 21 starts. But his career high completion percentage as a starter is 61%, a number that won't cut it against SEC defenses. Weis and his quarterback development and play calling were the secret sauce to the Ole Miss offense. He recruited Trinidad Chambliss and got him ready to play when starter Austin Simmons was injured in week 1. By the end of the season, Chambliss was the best offensive player in the SEC. Weis was also critical, in Jackson Dart's development, and his even temperament and meticulous game planning fits perfectly with Leavitt. Number 3, Michigan, quarterback Bryce Underwood and offensive coordinator Jason Beck. Underwood looked lost much of last season, forced into a one-read-and-go philosophy without any hands-on coaching. If the first read wasn't there, he ran. The numbers showed the struggles: 11 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and a completion percentage of 60. Beck and the offensive staff have essentially rebuilt Underwood from the ground up, and Whittingham says Underwood made great strides, despite uneven play in the spring game. He has a greater understanding of the position and passing game concepts. The goal is to run the ball with physicality, a Utah trademark under Whittingham, and put Underwood in position to have success with play-action throws. Number 4, Baylor, quarterback DJ Lagway, offensive coordinator Jake Spavital. Lagway looked like the next big star in the game after the 2024 season, leading Florida to big wins over LSU and Ole Miss and setting up a breakout season in 2025. Injuries in the offseason crushed those hopes, and the step in 2025 never materialized. Spavital has a history of quarterback development and production. Everywhere he has coached, Geno Smith, Johnny Manziel, Davis Webb, and Mendoza. He has experience with reclamation projects, turning Will Grier into one of the game's top quarterbacks after his drama-filled exit from Florida. The offense is a better fit, and Lagway will be coached differently than he ever has. He could have a huge season. Number 5, Kansas State, quarterback Avery Johnson and head coach Colin Klein. We've waited 2 years for Johnson to become a consistent, dangerous threat. He has all the tools and athleticism, but hasn't developed into an accurate thrower. K-State essentially chose Johnson over Will Howard after the 2023 season, and Howard left for Ohio State and won a national title. Johnson has one season left, and if Klein, who will be directly involved with the quarterbacks and offense, can reach Johnson, the Wildcats can return to the top of the Big 12. Klein worked a nearly identical job with Texas A&M quarterback Marcel Reed, who last year developed into a dependable, accurate thrower, and the Aggies surged offensively and earned a spot in the CFP. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 1:15. And continuing with number 6, quarterback Nico Jamaleva and offensive coordinator Dean Kennedy. Who knows where Amaleva would be had he not left Tennessee in the spring of last year and spent another season under Vols coach Josh Heupel, more than likely in an NFL camp. But here we are. Jamaleva gets one more shot at reaching his 5-star potential. His average yards per attempt dipped all the way to 6 in 2025, and he hit career lows in nearly every significant passing metric. Kennedy's offenses in 2 seasons at James Madison were impressive, but UCLA still has questions on the offensive line. Jamaleva has been sacked 57 times over the past 2 seasons at Tennessee and UCLA, a number that has clearly impacted his development.
The United States men's national team has sent a thank you to the country and a request. The article, headed USMNT thanks fans and hopes they stay on soccer's bandwagon. Nancy Armour of USA Today writes, in a social media post the day after the team was eliminated from the World Cup with a 4-1 loss to Belgium in the round of 16, the players said they carried the support of the fans with them when they played. You filled stadiums. You brought the game into your homes, bars, parks, and communities across the country, the team wrote in the July 7 post. Wearing the crest is a privilege, and hearing your voices throughout the tournament is something we will never forget. This is only the second time the United States has hosted the Men's World Cup, and U.S. Soccer is counting on it to spark another explosion in interest in the game. While it's too soon to tell what impact the tournament will have in the long term, the country flooded the USMNT bandwagon. Fox said a record 30 million people watched the loss to Belgium on July 6. The red and white stripes jersey seems to be the uniform of the summer, and Take Me Home, Country Roads was suddenly a hit once again. But the USMNT's finish was disappointing. Its round of 16 exit was the same as it had been in previous 3 appearances, and it was completely overwhelmed against Belgium. Well, we'll learn from this, the team said in the post. We'll get better to compete with the world's best, and we'll keep doing the work, because that's what this team and this country expects of us. The United States men's team also encouraged Americans to stay involved in the game, promising to provide more opportunities to play. That echoes what Captain Tim Ream said after the game. We knew what kind of impact we would be able to have as long as we played well, and the performances were there, and we were winning games. Obviously, that all comes to a halt now, but I don't think the conversation changes, Ream said. I'm sure people will say, now it's going to die down, but if you look at what we've done, I don't think that the conversation should die down, Ream said. I think it should be how incredible this journey has been with this group. How can we keep the conversation going? Those boys and girls, how can we continue to inspire them now that the tournament is over? The USMNT closed its thank you note by quoting Country Roads, which has become the team's anthem. Thank you for standing with us and for believing in this team. Thank you for believing in the future of soccer in this country, the note said. Country Roads, take us home. We'll see you there.
England's strategy pays off. Holland shines again. In an article regarding the World Cup round of 16 winners and losers, authored by Seth Vertelny of USA Today. The 2026 World Cup has reached the quarterfinals with 8 teams remaining in the competition. The round of 16 ended on July 7th, with Argentina defeating Egypt in a thriller and Switzerland getting past Colombia on penalties in a game that was decidingly less thrilling. But overall, the round of 16 delivered some of the World Cup's most memorable moments so far, from Argentina's wild comeback to England's breathless win at the Azteca. Let's look back at round of 16, highlighting some winners and losers. Winner, England. It's not just that England defeated Mexico at the daunting Estadio Azteca, it's how the Three Lions won that will inspire plenty of belief moving forward. England had to dig deep for its 3-2 win over Mexico, playing almost the entire second half with 10 men after Jarell Quansah's red card. Thomas Tuchel's decision to fall back into a defensive shell early paid off, as Mexico couldn't do much other than pump hopeless crosses into the teeth of England's defense. There were plenty of heroes on the night for England, which overcame the crowd conditions and altitude for a famous win. Harry Kane's voice, or lack thereof, after the final whistle exemplified England's performance. Another winner, Erling Haaland. This night might just be Haaland's tournament. Norway was tipped as a dark horse before the World Cup, largely due to Haaland's presence. But the striker might have actually exceeded the high pre-tournament expectations at this point. Haaland's double took Norway past Brazil and took him on to 7 goals, which have come in just 4 games after he sat out Norway's group finale. Even though Norway isn't at the overall talent level of some of the World Cup's elite teams, it's starting to feel like Haaland scoring alone could make the squad nearly unbeatable. Next up is England and a whole host of Premier League defenders. Haaland has victimized on a regular basis with Manchester City. Loser, the host countries. After all 3 host nations impressed in their first 4 matches of the tournament, their dreams all died at the same hurdle. Canada might be able to take the most positives from the World Cup. Even with some of its top players nursing injuries, Canada earned its first World Cup point, then its first World Cup win, then its first World Cup knockout win. Canada started well against Morocco in the round of 16, but was ultimately punished for its inability to score in a 3-0 loss. Mexico won all 4 of its opening games, all while not conceding a single goal, but both of those streaks came to a crashing halt against England. While there were plenty of positives for El Tri, the way the World Cup ended will be tough to swallow. The same goes for the U.S., which turned in an abject display against Belgium in one of the biggest games in its history. Much like Mexico, an excellent start to the tournament was undone by defeat in the round of 16. And also the loser, FIFA. We may never know exactly why FIFA decided at the last minute to change Folarin Balogun's red card ban to a suspended sentence, allowing him to play in the U.S. MNT's match against Belgium. But the decision made little sense, and given the pressure campaign put on by the U.S. government, it naturally led to claims of corruption. FIFA did not offer an explanation for the stunning reversal, other than hiding behind a statute that says, in effect, it can do whatever it wants. That will be news for every subsequent team that feels hard done in during this tournament. If Balogun's suspension can be overturned at the last minute, why can't anyone else's?
The Big 12 punts on addressing Cincy's. I'm sorry. Big 12 punts on addressing Cincy's role. Matt Hayes, college football columnist of USA Today Network, writes, before we get into Brett Yormark's pathetic posturing at Big 12 media days, let's reaffirm some undeniable facts. The NCAA said in March it received a tip from an online sports book about Texas Tech quarterback Brendan Sorsby's gambling activity, and says the sports book was alerted by law enforcement. Multiple people told USA Today Sports in April that not only was Sorsby gambling on games, but that Cincinnati, his former team for 2 years, knew about it in the summer of last year. Sorsby, in his lawsuit last month against the NCAA, claimed Cincinnati knew about it. Now, it brings us to the July 7 Media Day, or the great grandstanding event for Yormark. The Big 12 Commissioner and P.T. Barnum of college sports. No moment is too big or too small to sell anything, and no moment sure as hell is lost. A member of the media asked a legitimate question, with a microphone, loud enough for all to hear, that I'm going to paraphrase. Why isn't Cincinnati part of any investigation into Sorsby's gambling? So, Yormark, who began the day announcing the Big 12's new entitlement partner, would have a patch on the jerseys of all football and all men's and women's basketball teams in the conference, and signage on playing fields and courts, because nothing screams college sports quite like the NASCARification of it all. He seized the moment. Instead of simply answering the question with, "It's an ongoing process," Yormark decided to briskly strut to his left, stare at the media member, and say, "Stand up, ask that question again, and then I'm going to give you the answer I want to give you." Now, after the question was asked again, Yormark said, "We're going forward as 16 strong. That's my answer to your question." As punk a move as you'll ever see at any of these events. Now, here's the answer we want. Brett, it's time for the Big 12 and NCAA to come clean about Cincinnati's alleged knowledge of Sorsby's gambling. If Cincinnati knew and played Sorsby anyway, there should be NCAA sanctions. If Cincinnati did not, why let the university twist in the wind with the question everyone in the Big 12 wants answered? Instead, we get an adult professional trying to make another adult professional look and feel small for simply asking a question on everybody's mind. If you're not going to answer one way or the other, just say it's an ongoing investigation and move on. If it's not, I got some serious problems with the way the Big 12 and NCAA are handling it. The player at the center of your investigation, the player whom the NCAA rightfully argued in court, had to be ruled ineligible to protect the sanctity of the game. The player who multiple state attorneys general lined up to argue against said Cincinnati knew about his gambling proclivity. And that tip from a sports book? Give me a break. Sorsby had a legitimate gambling problem since 2022, placing thousands of bets with multiple accounts. So we're supposed to believe that a sports book randomly and suddenly figured out his identity after more than 4 years of consistent high-volume gambling by a tip from law enforcement, and then they passed the tip on to the NCAA. Law enforcement isn't giving tips to sports books, people. They're going straight to the feds, because gambling and throwing games, it's kind of a big deal. I'm not saying the NCAA lied in court filings when it claimed to receive a tip from a sports book that claimed it was alerted by law enforcement. I'm saying someone informed someone along the chain of Sorsby's gambling. Gee, I wonder who that was. Now, Cincinnati was in the middle of an ugly NIL divorce with Sorsby, who owed the university $975,000 to break his 2-year deal. Only Sorsby didn't think he owed a dime. Not only that, Sorsby left for Texas Tech. That's a Big 12 rival, and the one school in the conference that doesn't give a flip about overpaying players and doing everything it can to keep up with the Big 10 and the SEC. But I'm sure it was just a random tip from a sports book, from a random law enforcement source at a random time. All of our student athletes receive extensive gambling education multiple times throughout the year, and we would never knowingly play an athlete who violated NCAA sports wagering regulations. A Cincinnati statement said in June, after Ron Slavin, Sorsby's agent, went on a radio show in Dallas and claimed Cincinnati knew all about Sorsby's gambling activity. Now, that was before Sorsby's lawsuit filing against the NCAA became public in June, and before Sorsby dropped the bomb that Cincinnati knew all about it. And before Yormark decided to peacock on the stage at Big 12 Media Days, turning it into his own personal sideshow under the big tent. Nothing was going to overshadow his day, baby. Especially not a member of the mean media asking a question everyone in his conference wants answered.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 1:31. Evian commemorates Grace Kinn's legendary shot from Beth Ann Nichols of Golf Week and the USA Today Network. There's a plaque on a tree where 2025 Monday Evian Championship winner Grace Kim holed out for birdie on the par 5th 18th to extend the playoff. Kim saw the plaque for the first time on July 7th in Evian-les-Bains, France, where a field of 132 has gathered for the LPGA's fourth major of the season. Hearing about those people that come to play Evian and trying it out themselves, yeah, kind of makes me feel nice about it, said Kim. It's a very cool thing for Evian Resort to put up for it. So I'm really grateful for it. It makes me feel like, it's a bit of a legendary moment. Last year, Kim played the final 4 holes of regulation in 4 under to get into the playoff against Gino Tithakol, making eagle from tap-in range on the 72nd hole. On the first playoff hole, Kim's second shot into the closing par 5 bounced off a cart path and over rocks into a greenside pond. But she didn't panic. The Aussie pitched in for birdie, over the pond and across the green, to extend the playoff. Then, on the second playoff hole, she hit the green in 2 once again, with a 4 hybrid and sank a 12-footer for eagle. I was asked to do it yesterday, said Kim, of recreating the hole out. I ended up not doing it, which I think that saved a lot of their time and mine as well. Maybe I'll just leave it at that. Winning a major at age 24 has changed quite a few things for Kim, most notably her confidence. But, golf can really humble you quite quickly, she added. So in the times where it does get tough, I think I do handle myself a lot better. Winning a major changed her bank account too, of course, to $1.2 million, but it also changed the way she creates her schedule, allowing for more flexibility. Kim said she can now build her season in development blocks to try to peak at the right time. Winning even changed her golf ball. Last year at the Evian, Hannah Green's husband, Jared Felton, asked Kim why she didn't have a smiley face on her Srixon like Green. I said I'm not a major winner yet, recalled Kim. Funny enough, I won that week, and straight after that I put a kangaroo on it, so that Skippy is on my golf ball now. Kim also noted Skippy, the blow-up kangaroo part of last year's celebrations, made a return trip to Evian. Unfortunately, the local pub where she celebrated her victory was destroyed in a fire several months ago. We went down and they were all there, said Kim of the Aussie celebrations last year. I was having a shower, washing off the champagne, and basically by the time I got there, they were all pretty drunk. It was all good fun. I was able to get the trophy replica as well as the champagne bottle. I wanted to keep the big bottle.
Moving into the life section, Burn torches the Evil Dead playbook. Brendan Morrow of USA Today writes this movie review. Horror's grooviest movie franchise may have unlocked the key to consistency and quality, inconsistency in everything else. The Evil Dead series, which Sam Raimi started with his gleefully bloody 1983 classic, about college students encountering demons at a cabin in the woods, has thrived by always offering something different from what came before. Since 2013, each sequel has avoided feeling stale because it's headed up by an up-and-coming director who puts their stamp on the material with a fresh story and a set of characters. French filmmaker Sébastien Vanessek, the latest to step up to the gory plate with Evil Dead Burn, coming out in theaters, by the way, July 10th, says Raimi's trust in emerging filmmakers is why the series is still going strong. The producer gave him a huge amount of creative freedom with Burn, not dictating a particular story or direction. They trust a vision. They trust something new, Vanessek said. They are just telling you, go wild. Enjoy. Have fun. Go as far as you want. It's the franchise where all your wildest ideas can exist. They trust you to do whatever you have in mind. 2023's Evil Dead Rise shook up the series by moving beyond the traditional cabin setting to an apartment building. And Burn runs with that by going to another residential environment, a family home. While Alice's, she played by Suelia Yacoub, when Alice's husband, Will, played by George Boulard, dies in a horrific car accident, she heads to her in-laws' house, which turns into a hellish nightmare as one family member after another starts turning into a possessed creature known as a deadite. Though Burn is a largely standalone story with a new cast, it marks a shift for Evil Dead as the first chapter in years to directly pick up where the previous movie left off. Rise left one deadite, Jessica, still alive by the end, so she briefly returns in Burn to kick the plot into motion. Now, this not only bridges two otherwise unrelated stories, but it also allows Burn to subvert the franchise's formula, in which the madness typically starts because someone reads from a Book of the Dead. This time, things already are going off the rails before a book comes into play. Now, I wanted to play with the rules of this universe, Vanessek says. When I watched all the movies again, I realized that Evil Dead Rise ends with deadites in the wild. So that's the moment where I was like, maybe there is a world where I don't even need a book. That doesn't mean I will not use a book, but it was a way for me to twist things a little bit. Now, Vanessek came into the famously gruesome series with a different approach to gore, placing less emphasis on buckets of blood than on visceral moments that he wants to be really hurtful for the audience. I may not do the goriest Evil Dead, but I want to do the most brutal and the most violent, Vanessek recalls, telling Raimi. It's a different type of violence, not focusing on blood. I'm not in a competition of putting, I don't know how many gallons of blood in the movie. It's something a little bit different. Now, having a different protagonist with every sequel has allowed the newer Evil Dead movies to explore rich themes. The 2013 reboot was about drug addiction, while Rise was about parental anxieties. Burn is about love and the death of love, Vanessek says, an extension of the original moves that talk about love, about relationship, and would you be ready to kill somebody you love because the person is possessed? Although Raimi's first Evil Dead movie was fairly serious in tone, his sequels famously leaned more and more into slapstick comedy, a style that the director carried into his later horror films. One was called Drag Me to Hell and Send Help. But like the previous two Evil Dead movies, Burn mostly plays things straight. I didn't want to try to do what Sam Raimi did, because that's Sam Raimi, he says. the slapstick thing. This is his universe. Nobody wants to try to replicate that, so I tried to do my own thing. Now, Raimi is so confident in the approach to making Evil Dead movies that the next one is already in the can before Burn even comes out. 2028's Evil Dead Wrath, a prequel to Raimi's original, directed by another up-and-comer, Francis Galuppi. Vanacek isn't involved in Wrath, but says he's so excited for it. And if there's one thing fans can be sure of with Evil Dead at this point, it's that the next entry will be nothing like this new one. It doesn't need my movie. My movie doesn't need his, Vanacek says. It's definitely his own movie, own style, own thing. So it will be completely different.
Shakira brings infectious joy to stage, from Melissa Reggieri of USA Today. 2 months ago, Shakira performed for nearly 2 million people in Brazil. On July 6th, she played for a packed venue of 14,000 in Baltimore. Brazil likely was a blast, but watching the global superstar in a comparatively intimate arena felt like winning a concert lottery. Shakira's Las Maduras Ya No Lloran World Tour, which shares its name with her 2024 album of heartbreak and resilience, began in February of 2025. Since June, she has bopped around the USA on an arena leg that will wrap up at the end of July in Atlantic City, New Jersey, before heading to Madrid for a 12-show residency. After that, let's hope those hips get a rest, because the level of athleticism, gracefulness, and pure joy Shakira brings to the stage is a perfect storm of stamina and showmanship. Her entrance at the CFG Bank Arena show epitomized her persona and personality. After strutting down the side of the venue floor, marching with her dance troupe toward the stage catwalk, wearing dark shades and a model's pout, Shakira, in her sparkly gold ensemble, ripped off the glasses with a massive grin as if to say, "Just kidding, I would never take myself that seriously." And even though her soulful brown eyes rarely strayed from the onstage camera following her throughout the 2-hour show, she doesn't. Shakira revels in her happiness while performing, whether strolling through Girl Like Me, strapping on an outfit-matching guitar for the snarly Can't Remember to Forget You, shimmying in a conga line with dancers dressed in tiger costumes during Zoo, or belly dancing through Ojos Asi with liquidity that defies nature. There always is at least a hint of a smile on her face. If this is what the cusp of 50 looks like, please pass the bottle of potion. Shakira's music has earned her an international superstardom because she channels her Colombian roots into music that spans Latin pop, bachata, salsa, reggaeton, and straight-up rock crunchers. Anyone wondering why she was nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year, 35 years since her debut album Magia, need only listen to Pies Descalzos, Sueños Blancos. On stage, Shakira unleashed her inner rock star during the song, working the stage and the mic stand in a purple corset and matching fringe pants and whipping her curls like a weapon. But then she exposed her she-wolf side as tender-hearted mom, whose eyes dampened watching sons Sasha and Milan sing on video in Acrostico, as well as philosophical Big Sister. Life has its way to reward us all. We all have hardships, and we can only wake up and say thank you for one more day, Shakira told the crowd, which she frequently addressed in English and Spanish. I wonder if we're all a lot stronger than we think we are. Fans admire Shakira's inner strength, but they also adore her effervescence as a performer. Billions of calories must have been burned from the nonstop movement in the crowd as Shakira swiveled and sashayed through wherever, and her current sweet spot, Dai, a FIFA World Cup ambassador since 2006, Shakira has a smash with the playful song that is the official anthem of this year's games. Her live presentation simulated the video as Shakira and her dancers spun, clapped, and displayed admirable limberness, and Skittles-colored skirts that flapped with every shift of a body part. It really doesn't matter what Shakira is doing on stage. It's impossible to take your eyes off of her. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 1:45.
Continuing in the movie vein, Wild brings food for thought to the party. Photographs of Edward Norton and Olivia Wilde, who star in the movie The Invite. The movie was also directed by Olivia Wilde. Patrick Ryan of USA Today writes, Olivia Wilde has 2 rules for dinner parties. Don't squander a priceless bottle of wine, and don't start cleaning up before it's even over. Enjoy your own party, says Wilde, age 42, who hosts a spicy, sozzled soiree in her R-rated marriage comedy, The Invite. It's in select theaters now and nationwide tomorrow. I don't like going to someone's party when I can feel them working the whole time, because then I feel really guilty. Keep it easy. No work allowed. Like Angela, her tightly wound character, Wilde loves a cheese shop and splurging on cured meats. People would rather have a full charcuterie board than almost anything else you're ever going to serve, she says. Just hope everybody isn't lactose intolerant or vegan. Now, Wilde's co-star, Edward Norton, meanwhile, is content just to nosh on some really, really good cookies. I'm giving away my sweet tooth here, Norton, age 54, says with a grin. I like when somebody puts little boulders of chocolate out. I just want chunks of chocolate to be thrown on the table. Set over one marijuana and Xanax-addled night, The Invite follows Angela and her gruff musician husband, Joe, played by Seth Rogen, whose passionless marriage is on life support. Now enter their noisy yet impossibly chic upstairs neighbors, Hawk, played by Norton, and Pina, played by Penelope Cruz, who make an alluring proposition that forces Joe and Angela to reevaluate their relationship. Now, the movie is Wilde's 3rd outing as a director. After 2019 high school comedy Booksmart and the 2022 sci-fi thriller Don't Worry, Darling, which was overshadowed by the tabloid frenzy surviving its megawatt cast. The Invite finds the actress returning to her art house roots with a dialogue-heavy, single-location story that is heavily indebted to the works of Woody Allen, Mike Nichols, and Nora Ephron. The film is adapted from a 2020 Spanish comedy, which itself is based on a play. When Wilde first read Rashida Jones and Will McCormick's script, she saw herself more so in Joe, who shoots from the hip, unlike the meticulously organized, eager-to-please Angela. I am not the keeper of the calendar. It's always an adventure and always a surprise, Wilde says. And the idea of being ambushed with a social situation is actually my nightmare. Wilde and her co-stars rehearsed for 2 weeks before filming started, tweaking dialogue as they got candid with one another about platonic and romantic relationships. Norton, for instance, drew many of Hawk's idiosyncrasies from his friends. It was like, let's all talk for real about what we've gone through and people we know, says Norton, who's been married to producer Shauna Robertson since 2012. There was a freedom to bring ourselves and to work it into the text. It didn't feel like we were encountering this existing thing and going, oh, that's a little too close to the bone. Olivia was like, go close to your bone, bring it into the film. Not to sound gooey, but it was a very intimate experience. Wilde wanted to explore what it means to no longer know or communicate with your partner. an experience that mirrored her own 2020 breakup with fiance Jason Sudeikis, with whom she shares 2 children, Otis, age 12, and Daisy, 9. Although she has no intention of starring in The Invite, or had no intention, she now considers it the performance she's proudest of because of the level of vulnerability she was able to bring to the table. You can't direct a film if you have these guards up, Wilde says. I felt so safe with this particular group, and it also felt like if I'm asking you guys to be honest, then I'm going to be honest. Edward said, if you were drawn to tell this story, then it means that you have something to say, she recalls. I remember that really hitting me and realizing that it was much more personal than I had understood. It was at that point that I plugged into why it was a personal film, and that opened the whole thing up for me in several different ways. Now, most couples watching The Invite will find it impossible not to recognize themselves, whether it's the conspiratorial way that Angela and Joe sneak off to gab about their neighbors, or facepalm in embarrassment after some tequila-fueled confessions. It's a movie that's as laugh-out-loud funny as it is tear-jerking, as Joe and Angela finally put everything out in the open and reckon with their future together. From an audience perspective, what's almost more interesting is, what do people want for them? Norton says some people are going to be in a place in their life where they want there to be hope, and some people will be saying, run, girl. What people project into the film will be rooted in the way they're feeling. The Invite was a hit with critics at Sundance Film Festival in January, and already is considered an early Oscar contender. In recent weeks, Wilde has enjoyed sneaking into theaters to gauge moviegoers' reactions, and she hopes that they find a similar sort of catharsis that she did in making it. We resonate with things when we're ready to, and we can really understand them, Wilde says. I think a lot of people are connecting with this movie because they have had difficult relationships. It takes a certain amount of understanding of these issues in order to responsibly tell the story. Could I have made this movie when I was 20? No. It would have been really bad. Ultimately, it's about people wanting to be better versions of themselves, being more open to different ways of thinking, Wilde said. It's asking you to go under the surface and to say the things that you don't think you're allowed to say.
Returning to the sports section for this article, Deion Sanders declares he's got swagger back. And we're on page 5C, and we're reading an article that's authored by Brent Schrotenborg of USA Today. 1 year ago, at the same time and place, Colorado coach Deion Sanders attended Big 12 Conference Football Media Days with a sweatsuit under his business suit to disguise the fact that he had lost about 15 pounds. He was recovering from bladder cancer back then. He looked a little weak and sometimes couldn't stand up. But here he is now with a message for the masses, as delivered to a news conference to hundreds of reporters on July the 7th. Now I'm here with full strength, full energy, he said. I got that thing back. I got that swagger back. I've got that dog back. I've got charisma back. He said he cannot wait to get back on the sideline and do our thing after finishing 3-9 last year while he struggled to recover from having his bladder removed. Just like he's done after previous losing seasons in Boulder, he has flipped the roster and brought in new coaches, including a new offensive coordinator, Brendan Marion, and defensive coordinator, Chris Marv. But what makes this team any different from those other overhauled rosters from before? That's what the media who cover the Big 12 seem to be asking. A poll of USA Today Network reporters collectively predicted Colorado would finish 15th out of 16 teams this year, same as last year. No Colorado players were even selected to the all Big 12 preseason team in either the USA Today Network poll or a poll of league media released by the league itself. Colorado players noticed. Senior safety Ben Vincent talked about it in the hot tub after a workout July the 6th with receiver Danny Scudero. It just pisses us off, Vanessa told reporter Tuesday, it's fine because we're going to prove you wrong every time. So it's just another motivator, and it makes us have to kick it up into a higher gear. A reporter asked Sanders about what might surprise people about his team. We better win, Sanders said. That's going to be the surprise. The pieces are there, according to him and his players. For one, Sanders has a mostly new quarterback, redshirt freshman Julian Lewis, who started 2 games last year as Sanders struggled to find a replacement for his quarterback son, Shadir Sanders. Lewis is only 18 and has been praised by Marion for his progress in the go-go offensive system. On top of that, Sanders has a bevy of more than 60 new transfer players who were brought in under a plan similar to that used by Indiana on its run to the national championship. That plan favors production over potential when bringing in new players. For example, 24 of Colorado's 42 new scholarship transfers come from outside the Power Four conferences, according to USA Today Sports Research. But almost all were former starters, including Scudero, a transfer from San Jose State, who led the nation with 108.1 receiving yards per game last year.
And a happy birthday to Tom Hanks, who turned 70 today.
You've been listening to a reading of articles from USA Today for Thursday, July 9th, 2026. We read USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call 716-821-5555. And finally, your readers today have been
Ken Drost
and Jim Duffy.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio Reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability,